Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you around the world listening to this session. We have the next, say, 40, 45 minutes together, depending on questions and such, to go through our CASB solution. As Wendy mentioned, I'm a senior manager in product management here at Palo Alto. I spent the last 8+ years in cybersecurity across a variety of different organizations, some of which building CASB solutions, as I am doing today with our team. And I will take you through what we're going to talk about today in a nutshell as we get started. I'm going to spend some time going through the CASB landscape, as you can see here. And I will deep dive into a particular set of areas, shadow IT, visibility and control specifically. I'll talk about API, scanning and monitoring, SaaS applications, and our solutions there, as well as posture management. So those are the three areas that we'll deep dive into. Depending on how we're doing on the flow and time, I do have some recorded demos. I'll definitely show a couple of those, maybe all three. And that will give you a feel for the product experience and is a good complementary to our slides as well. And we'll end with Q&A. So that's our agenda for today. Before we dive into some of the solutions that we have here and the products, it's always great to kind of just step back and look at how things have evolved and changed. And I'm sure you guys do this all the time as well. But not only has it evolved from the standpoint of, I remember maybe 7, 8 years ago, shadow IT was a big topic, one that I certainly spoke about in various organizations and trade shows. And we talk about thousands of shadow IT applications. Well, that's almost quadrupled, I think I'd say. But it's also amazing to see that with SaaS explosion, you also have a lot more sanctioned applications. So of those shadow IT applications, and in case you're not familiar, shadow IT by definition would be applications SaaS PaaS IaaS, to be frank, that are not in the purview of an IT organization. You don't have visibility into them, or you're not fully aware of what's going on, the transactions, the sessions, the usage of those applications. That would consider them shadow. To me, when I look at the statistic around 100+ sanctioned applications, that tells me that more and more business is being done, more and more productive things are being done through SaaS applications. I can imagine all of you can relate to this in your day-to-day, your ability to be productive, to access applications and make change in your organization or influence things, whether it be creating materials to legal, to HR, to product and engineering. All of these SaaS applications that have become more and more prevalent are allowing many employees to do great work. With that, of course, means that a lot of transformation is taking place. I was just reading up on digital transformation versus data transformation the other day, and believe it or not, someone taking a document and converting that to a PDF file is data transformation. That is transforming that set of data as it existed in its current form into a subsequent form for whatever you need to do. And that data transformation can sometimes result in some risk, or the way that you scan and monitor that, how you take a look at that, depends on the solutions that are offered to you or that you have access to. And of course, all along the way, attackers are adapting to this and becoming smart and wise to how they penetrate the environment and how they take advantage of any sort of gaps that may exist in your own security posture. So as we look at that, obviously, transparency, visibility, control has always been key, but when all the crown jewels in your organization, all of those SaaS applications and the data within those applications, the usage, the actual users reside there and attackers can get to them, that is a scary proposition. If you expand that to not only these enterprise sanctioned applications, building from the last slide, to a variety of users across a variety of endpoints, some of those being managed, others BYOD or unmanaged, on top of which you add cloud-to-cloud connected activity, it becomes very, very interesting. In full transparency, in a lot of our work in product, we speak to tons of customers, as you can imagine, and we're going through a proposal with a large financial customer today where they build out their own private SaaS applications. And those are hosted, I should say, on the G Suite or Office 365 marketplace. So they know about them. They're productivity apps. They have attributes and risk associated with them. And that's a very good example of SaaS to SaaS connected apps that may be private within an organization. However, they still want controls around that. Who can access that within the organization, classic role-based access, et cetera. And that makes the landscape even tougher, to be honest, because there may be applications that are built by yourselves as private entities, public entities that you don't want to expose to others, but you still want control around them, visibility around them, and of course, the ability to maybe enforce some rules around those specific applications. So it just becomes more and more nested, is my point. When we look at the existing approaches, many of them fail. Legacy CASB has been around, Cloud Access Security Broker, which I apologize that it did not define upfront. So in case you are not familiar or haven't looked it up already, as we've been speaking, Cloud Access Security Broker is really a policy enforcement point between your users and the cloud. That's really what we are trying to tackle. And it's a space that has evolved over time as SaaS applications have become more prevalent, as security access, SaaS application security has become more and more a buzzword, and that has come almost to the forefront again, CASB. And so solutions have existed for a long time. Many of them miss the mark. As you can see here, there are a lot of misconfigurations that take place in SaaS applications. We'll talk about that with our posture management solution, and how we become aware of those and solve those is non-trivial, especially if you don't have the right tools or the right coverage for the applications that you care most about. Traditional approaches to data loss prevention don't always work. And when they do, well, there's employees that make things tricky for us. Using collaboration applications to get work done is an example that you can see here. But given structured, unstructured data, and we're talking about videos and photos and all the other things that have evolved over time beyond traditional databases or files, well, that becomes tougher to navigate, to scan, to monitor, and make sense of, especially when you're looking for sensitive data or data security use cases that you're solving for. And all the while, obviously, attackers are lurking here. They've become wise to things. So your traditional or basic sandboxing and signatures and scanning can't always evade the bad things that are taking place. So it's something that we all have to evolve and keep in mind. And so with that, obviously, you have heard of Zero Trust and its approach to solving problems. But in a nutshell, what we're really talking about here is monitoring, securing, protecting, and preventing. And so when we deep dive into all those, and we'll do that through some examples that I'll show here as well as the demos, it's really about discovering and control. It's about how do I get a sense of what may be suspect configurations in my SaaS applications. Am I even aware of all these configuration and what the threat is that they pose? How can I protect my data? And what are my most important applications that I want to protect? Others that maybe I want to monitor or tolerate, and others that I just flat out do not want access to for my organization, that is. And all the while, how do I prevent those sort of attacks? Can I get the right incidents, the right alerts to be able to inspect the content I care most about? Perhaps it's compliance, perhaps it's PHI, PII, certain sensitive data that I care about in certain applications. And how do I make the products that I work with aware of those concerns? And how do you protect me on that? Those are the sort of examples that we'll talk about. So with that preamble, let's dive into these four areas that I spoke about earlier, mainly three, and we'll kind of wrap it up with just overall advanced threats. But it is around visibility and control, around security posture management, looking at those configurations or misconfigurations for that matter, and looking at data security or your traditional API solutions. We'll delve a little bit into DLP as well with that and wrap that up. So to begin with visibility and control, the solutions that we offer today within Palo Alto exist within our SaaS security suite. It's part of our CASB solution, by the way. And what it allows you to do is gain visibility into that shadow IT. So as I spoke about earlier, if you're not aware of what shadow IT is and what that looks like in your landscape, typically that's one of the first places to start for most organizations for data security, CASB admins as our target personas that we look at. What we allow you to do is automate application discovery to be able to make sense of that world through not only risk vectors, but also to look at those applications from a standpoint of categories, usage, upload, download data, and other vectors that mainly dive into things that you may care about in terms of personalization. And so what I mean by that is the ability to tag. As you go through workflow management, as I call it, you can sanction, unsanction, and tolerate applications. Our application cloud engine currently supports over, this is actually a little bit out of date, it's close to 60,000 SaaS applications out of the box. So if we transpose your logs through Cortex Data Lake, in this case, and we discover applications, we will surface those. We have vast index of applications that we are familiar with and their respective signatures, the URLs, et cetera, that are associated with them. So we can make sense of that information and then allow you to kind of slice and dice that information to make sense of it and ultimately also tag it. One of the things that a customer I was speaking to a couple of weeks ago does is beyond just tagging sanctioned, unsanctioned, and tolerate applications, they actually have their response teams tag the date by which those applications were discovered. Perhaps group them into areas like used by legal, used by marketing, used by HR, whatever you want to call it. They were actually asking for open text comments, which is something that I'm looking to also add to our roadmap. But custom tagging is possible today. So you can go ahead and date something as of today's date because it was discovered today and be able to then search upon that and build policies or control vectors around it. That's just an example of some flexibility offered through the product. I alluded to this earlier, but the ability to actually take advantage of this is through our SaaS inline product. All you really need is Cortex Data Lake as a requirement. So if your logs from Firewall or Access are feeding into Cortex Data Lake, we can pull from that, make sense of the information to expose shadow IT. We do a lot of machine learning of the discovery of applications, as you probably noticed in the previous slide. As that evolves, that means a few different things. It's the evolution of not only the applications that we discover, but also the attributes, the risk vectors, what are top applications in your part of the world. These are all things that these are all problems, I should say, that we are solving for within our product suite. Ultimately, then you have granular controls. So once you make sense of that information, if you want to go ahead and block access to it, we do offer several, I think it's 5, 6 predefined policies where you can add applications to your block list. And we'll show you an example of that in the demo upcoming. That control vector could be the next generation firewall product from our portfolio, or it could be Prisma Access. It doesn't matter. We actually have control over both of those. So depending on what hooks you have from a firewall access standpoint, we will help you enforce your security rules and your policies based on that. All right, the aforementioned demo. So let me make sure that I am sharing my entire screen, which I don't believe I am. So give me 1 second here. I will go ahead and, okay. Wendy, can you confirm you can see this?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, it says paused, so that's, just give me 1 second.
No worries.
All right, yeah. Once again, you can see SaaS security?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. So I'll set that up for, I'll set this up for all of you. I'm actually showing, this is a recorded demo of our SaaS security suite. So I had this in the screenshot earlier, and what you see is the SaaS inline dashboard. does not say SaaS inline, but you see at the top here, discovered applications and a bunch of subtabs, dashboard, applications, users, app dictionary, policy recommendation, and reports. We won't have time to go through all of these, but we'll do a good sweep of the landscape. So as we begin, we have at the top here this experience around discovered applications by risk. And you can also see a lot of slicing and dicing, the ability to not only hover over and deep dive into specific risk, which we'll do in a second here, but also top categories by applications. You can pivot on top applications by usage as well. You see top 10 applications by usage. In this case, I'm going to go into high risk applications because I see over 3,000 of them. As I look at that, I can see what those applications are. I see the risk vectors, the categories they fit into, and maybe even some specifics. I dove into ZippyShare as a specific application that I care about. Looks like it's got a high risk score. I can see the users and usage, upload, download information, and also basic information about what is ZippyShare, where does it come from, what its vanity URL is. And here, by the way, I'll just pause. I see security and privacy attributes as well as compliance attributes. We are close to over 50 attributes. Right now, you see about 33 and change. I think it's 42, if I'm not mistaken. Today, we are on the cusp of adding another 8 security and privacy attributes based on feedback, things like data retention to data in transit, data in motion. These are the characteristics about applications that our research team and our machine learning has surfaced. So this helps you make better decisions, hopefully. If it doesn't, let me know. But what we're doing here is we also give you the ability to change the risk score. I will say, having spent the last 8+ years in cybersecurity, not all products offer this. And so I'll just pause here just to mention that what we allow is the ability to say, well, Rohit, I don't care about GDPR compliance as much. I don't have any entities, let's just say, in Europe. But I care about A, B, and C. I care about file and content sharing and disaster recovery, and specifically maybe FedRAMP, because I'm in the Fed or government space. Well, you can change the global risk score, and then the entire risk index will be evolved to meet your needs. And that is something that is a customization that our product offers that I can tell you, having worked on many other products, is not always available. So take that for what it is. I think it's a great feature that we do offer. Doesn't mean we get risk right all the time. There's a lot of subjectivity, but here's the good news. You can actually still change risk score to suit your needs. In this specific example, what I'm looking to do here is you notice that there was already a block policy set for ZippyShare. There's a call to action, unblock access. So it's asking me here through this modal, you're about to remove ZippyShare from the block access rule, which implies that it's already been added to the block access rule. Do I want to do that or not? In this case, I'm going to say cancel. But now I'm curious, can I go to zippyshare.com and what the experience looks like in the event that a block policy has been initiated? So I confirm here that if I do go to ZippyShare, just like a user would in an organization, it's blocked. And that's because someone added that to the blocked list. Where that was done is in policy recommendations, as you can see here. And so I'm going to go through a simple example here of creating a granular policy around Box, a popular cloud storage application that you may know. So what we're going to do is monitor this tolerated SaaS application. In this environment, I'm saying that Box is tolerated. So we don't sanction it, we don't unsanction it. We realize people use it, and so we want some controls around it, specifically some granular controls. So what I'm doing here as an admin is I'm looking for Box as an application. I find it here. It's got some medium risk, let's just say. I'm going to go ahead and initiate an action to block uploads to Box, as you can see here. I'm not going to specify any granular groups that can have specify that policy, but I am going to say that I care about a specific data profile. So in this case, I'm going to say if there's PII associated in Box, meaning personal identifiable information, I want to go ahead and block the ability for users in my organization to upload to Box. Here's an example of that. So what I'm showing you here is that I'm going to go ahead and pull up specifically a file that I know has PII. I attempt to upload it. And because that block policy that specific granular policy was created, this failed. So in a nutshell, that is the end around of the experience that a customer would have if an admin initiated this block policy. So once again, it's a general sweep of SaaS inline, but hopefully this gives you some appreciation for what that experience looks like and what the UI looks like for SaaS inline. All right. Wendy, let me know if you can't see my screen, but I assume you can see now comprehensive SaaS security, posture management as our next section.
Yes, correct.
We can see.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. So we covered the visibility control piece. Another very interesting angle that we have seen evolve in recent times is misconfigurations. Oftentimes, if I was in the room with you, and I guess I could do this in a rhetorical way, how many of you actually know about all of the SaaS applications that are used in your organization and the specific configurations of those SaaS applications? It's a rhetorical question because there are a ton of them there. In full transparency, at Palo Alto, we have Okta usage, and we have a ton of SaaS applications that we can initiate or authenticate through there. Are we aware of all the configurations and the settings? Is our IT department even aware of those? Well, I would hope the answer to that is yes, because we actually dog food a lot of our tools, and having had interactions with our IT organization, they use the products that our team develops to keep tabs on what Palo Alto employees are doing. So I'm hopeful that we do have visibility into that. But a normal organization, very, very hard to do. Small, medium business, you have a couple of people maybe analyzing and inspecting this sort of SaaS landscape and trying to figure out how to scan and monitor, let alone look at the various permutations of configurations that exist for all those respective SaaS applications. It's brutal. And so the point is that they're becoming more and more complex, and there's really a lack of coordination. Think about an enterprise organization that's got multiple layers to it in terms of IT and security, a SOC. How do they control or even talk to each other to know which settings they turn on or off for said application? It's hard enough to get bounds around what the shadow IT is, let alone all the configurations for all of those specific applications. Long-winded way of saying this is yet another problem that is exacerbated by humans. We are guilty here because it's really human error, or sometimes it's just the fact that we don't have visibility into it, or we are too busy to know of all the things that all the knobs and levers, let's just say, that exist with all these SaaS applications that now we're using. And so that presents a huge, huge challenge, as you can imagine, right? The tens or hundreds of settings that are growing and changing. No doubt SaaS applications are evolving their products. So suppose you even got your arms around 10 plus application settings. Well, the SaaS application that you use, that you love, that may be sanctioned, is continuing to ship, right? Continuous delivery. And so they're evolving their settings and their feature sets, and it's hard to keep tabs on what the new releases are, multiplied out by all those applications. So settings are unique, they're complex, they're not optimized, and changes are made by various roles without sometimes understanding the impact of those changes. So this is why we deep dove into this area of SaaS security posture management and what that means. So as we look at this, this has been in the news. We'll show you some headlines here about how it's becoming a leading source of what you can see breaches. And so a lot of top vendors that you're all familiar with have had their run-ins with this, and it's led to a lot of heartache at the end of the day. So how do we prevent that? How do we give you, once again, visibility around that and control around it? Right now, you may not have awareness of these configurations, which ones are vulnerable, which ones are actually okay, and you may assume that they're secure by default. That's a common misconception, by the way, is that I'm using a SaaS application, they have a security team, they're on top of this. That may be true, but given all of the things that you can evolve and tweak in the SaaS applications that you set up and how that aligns with your own acceptable use policies, what you may sanction, unsanction, tolerate. No SaaS application will ever know that, right? It's personal to your organization. And so that's why risk tolerance is a very personal personal thing. It's unique to each and every enterprise, just like risk is unique to all of us as human beings, right? Our risk tolerance, our ability to take on risk, or to be able to evolve that is something that is a very personal decision. So the other thing that I want to point out is oftentimes without sophisticated products to do this, people resort to basic means. This highlight here on the right-hand side of folks tracking configurations via tedious audits brings back some painful memories for me, because in the early days of even shadow IT, I talked to more than a handful of organizations that were tracking their shadow IT through spreadsheets. I guess maybe that's why spreadsheet is the killer app, right? It evolves over time and you can do so many different things. Whether that's something you should be doing or if it's a good use of time, very subjective, obviously. And I think most of us would agree that's not a good use of time if you have sophisticated products that can do this for you. But the reality is that depending on the size of your organization, your means, you may be doing something like this. Not a great thing, especially from a product standpoint. That's a product that's ripe for disruption, and we want to solve that problem for customers, which is why we do offer a solution. So SaaS security posture management. What does that look like? Well, we're really looking at broad coverage. We support a lot more applications than the typical vendor supports today. We have gone beyond even compliance. So we're looking at best practice recommendations for you to be able to evolve and surface the policies that we think organizations care about. And we are looking at a prevention first approach to things. So fix issues fast, highlight them to you, one-click remediation, and drift prevention, which we'll talk about in the demo here as well. And ultimately, that will result in a value to your organization. Hopefully you see this, is decreasing that app audit time that would normally take weeks to simply a few hours. And that is time to value. That is proof of value, hopefully, when you get a chance to take a look at this. As I said, this is our SSPM, SaaS Security Posture Management solution. The requirements for this is fairly trivial. You're using our products. It's an a la carte offering, in fact, in our CASB suite. So yes, you can avail of it in our bundles, but you can also just get SaaS Security Posture Management as an a la carte item. We support over 90 plus SaaS applications today. This is by far the most in the industry. You can look it up. Don't take my word for it. And you once again have granular controls around NGFW or Prisma access as a result of this. So these are all the hooks in place for you. Let me shift over now to the demo that I had for us on this. Bear with me as I pull this up. And all right, so hopefully you can see my screen. Let me just go full mode here. So as I start this off, this is the posture security tab within SaaS security. Right at the top here, just to give you a lay of the landscape, because there's a lot of things that you can see here. You have posture summary on the top left. So it just kind of shows you, okay, where do we notice some violations that are high, medium, and low? And subsequently, what are specific salient apps that may be at a risk level? So you see Couchbase, Box, Salesforce right at the top right. And you see a bunch of policies that we'll deep dive into that may be misconfigured or failing for that matter. And what does that mean? What do we notice about them? What settings are they? And how do we remediate them? So that's what you see here right at the top in the lay of the landscape. And then, of course, you can deep dive into those and take a look at that. What we're going to be doing here in a few seconds is I'm going to take you through, I believe it's Salesforce, if memory serves me correct, and looking at all the policies for specific applications and specifically this area of timeouts. So you may be familiar with re-authentication. So let me just pause here just so you can grasp what's being shown here. You may be familiar with SaaS applications requiring you to re-authenticate after a session expires. As you can see at the top here, it articulates that. Well, there are a lot of different settings around that. Sometimes that can be hours where a timeout takes place. Sometimes it can be a matter of minutes. And depending on your risk tolerance, once again, that is very subjective. But if we notice that it may be egregious in that you have hours before a timeout takes place, and we think that that can be better accommodated, then we're going to suggest that to you as a violation. And so that's what you're seeing here. If I continue the demo, you are looking at all of the applications on the bottom section here and their respective settings, where apps that require reauthentication after session expiration may be either passing or in violation. So you see Salesforce Prod as an instance, it's passing, but you see the specific one here where there's a violation taking place, or we believe there's a violation. Once again, it's very subjective. It's up to you to determine whether that meets your criteria or not. And so we allow you to deep dive into this. I'm just going to accelerate this demo because we kind of pause here. If I click on session timeout, I see that the current value is 2 hours for session timeout, but the suggested value is 15 minutes. Now, as an admin, I can look at that and say, well, that's not good. I do want to remediate that. So I'm asked if that's actually what I want to do. And if I go and click on it, that suggestion will now take place so that the owner of that application, in this case, in the IT department, it's whoever owns Salesforce, will be notified of that recommendation so they can make that change. In addition to that, if I want to prevent, once the change has taken place, someone from changing that again, it's called drift prevention. I don't want this setting to drift to something else. I can lock that in place so that no one changes this to 2 hours back again. So that's what drift prevention is. Fast forward here, this is showing you all of the different SaaS security posture management applications, the 90 plus applications we support today. You can configure those, set those up easily in our settings section for the UI, based on the UI. Very similar to how you will be able to do that in our data security landscape, which we may or may not get to in our second demo, depending on how we evolve here. But that shows you the set of applications and the coverage that we have. So that in a nutshell, I know it's broad strokes, is our SaaS security posture management solution. Let's go further down the line and talk a little bit about APIs. So APIs is commonly referred to as data security. We offer data security as part of our CASB suite as well. And ultimately, the problems you're looking to solve here are around preventing exposure of sensitive data. So if I care about, like in that first demo I shared with you, personal identifiable information, PII, or health records, or credit card information, or a certain compliance that maybe is important or top of mind for me. Well, I want to scan and monitor for that through the applications that I care about. I perhaps want exact data matching or optical recognition of images to other machine learning classifiers that are maybe top of mind. Well, good news, all of these exist within our solutions. We support over 25 plus apps today, 27 plus apps, I guess, is what's noted here. And we use a variety of different means to be able to make sense of that information, to scan and monitor those applications that you care most about, to be able to surface the sensitive data. That, in a nutshell, is our offering. And what you can see here, the architecture to support that, very similar to what we've been talking about here. You have a bunch of API connectors. The crux of this, by the way, if you're not familiar, is really having authenticated access to those applications. There's a series of steps. Many of them are offline that we cannot influence. We can bring you to the water, as they say, but we can't make you drink it. You have to go ahead and configure those applications. So you see Twitter and Box and Evernote, et cetera, all the popular applications you would expect that you want to scan and monitor. Once those are connected applications, then you can avail of them and set granular controls around them and be able to set all the policies that are top of mind for you. So that ultimately is what we're talking about here. I guess I do have time for a demo on this, and I would like to show you this because I think that is much more compelling ultimately than me talking through a bunch of slides. So let me set this up for you. What we're going to do here in this particular demo, this is probably the last demo that we show, is to surface a document that's got, I think it's PCI or credit card information, if I'm not mistaken, that gets shared in a Slack channel. So it's a cloud-to-cloud connected app. It gets shared with an employee by the name of Alex, and we realize, hey, it's got credit card information. We are then warned of that, and we want to delete that information from being shared or pull that back because it was mistakenly shared. So that's kind of the setup here. You can take a look. Someone has taken a Word document and they're sharing that, I believe, with Alex in the Slack message. So it's now been shared. And if I click through on the document, I notice, oh, there's a bunch of credit card information in there. Sorry, this goes a little bit fast, but you can see that that document, if I pull it up, there's a violation that resulted. In fact, let me just go back a second because that was quick. Here, you get a message or an alert. A potential information security violation has been detected. Well, it found credit card information. If I go ahead and click through that, I can see what the CCN or the credit card information is like. There's high confidence for that match criteria that you can see here. I can request a snippet so I can actually deep dive into where in that document the credit card information was. I can find out through the incidents the source of that document, who the owner was, the data profile that matched it, and when it was updated or uploaded, I should say. And so all of the incident information is basically there. Now, I can have the option here of looking at this incident that was violated and now deciding as an admin, hey, I didn't like that was done. Let me go ahead and remove that. Or I could say, yeah, you know what, that's good because this was shared with the finance department and they expected credit card information to be in this document because that's something they have access to and should have the right to have access to it. Well, that's not a violation. In this particular case, it is a violation. So I want to remove that document from the share that took place. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is delete that information. When I go ahead and do that, I'll take that action here as an admin. I'm going to go back to my Slack channel with Alex, and I notice that no longer exists. It was removed or retroactively removed. So that is the beauty of the solution here, is that we found a violation through API access. This is the SaaS API solution once again, and we now removed it because it violated a policy. Once again, we're showing you all the different SaaS applications that are supported that you can connect. Anything that with the tag of data here, as opposed to what you see as posture, is something that you can now connect to. And as I mentioned earlier, there are over 27 applications that you do have access to that you can scan and monitor as part of our solution. All right, as we wrap up here, what we talked about was the visibility and control piece. We talked about SaaS security posture management and some of the coverage that we offer here, the continuous monitoring of that coverage. We talked about data security as a solution and specifically our API solutions, and ultimately things that we didn't get into that are also part of our suite, maybe a webinar for a future date, is malware protection, suspicious user activity, commonly known in the CASB space as user entity behavior analytics or UEBA, and how this all fits together in a SASE solution, right? These are all things that are not trivial. There are a lot of complex not only terminologies, but technologies that are at play here. And I don't always expect everyone to follow all along, but hopefully, as we went through this a bit methodically today with the aid of demos, you had more of an appreciation for how we look at solving those problems, how we actually solve them in the product experience, what that user experience looks like, and some common use cases that you can solve for. From a product standpoint, that's our world and the sort of things that we think about. And hopefully that resonates with you. And there were some connection points between what I shared and the problems that you are looking to tackle as well. To further your learning, obviously you can work with the team here through their office hours and the things that Wendy and team mentioned, but you can also hop onto our website, look for our CASB solution, our next generation CASB solution. There are a ton of resources. The SASE for Dummies book is a great resource, in addition to a bunch of solution briefs that we offer with lots of different examples of how we can solve problems for you as well. So I encourage you to take a look at that. They're all accessible on the World Wide Web as we know it, and you can continue your learning or, of course, reach out to our teams. So with that, I thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit about CASB. I think we'll pause here and see if we have any questions, and I'll let Wendy and team facilitate that.